Welcome to Hey Dad Podcast. Real dads, tough issues, and a genuine love for a fatherless generation.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Today, it's myself, Rick Rivera, Chris Lawler. I'll let Chris introduce his son.
Yeah, this is my son, James. James is autistic, but he loves being with me. He's my symbiote. Everywhere I go, James is there. And that cuts a lot of different ways. But he's a delight of my heart, heir to my throne. Say hi, James.
Hi. Welcome to the podcast, Dad.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you, James. You're awesome. So today we're missing Frank. Frank's detained. He's got some health issues to take care of. And we just pray for his quick return. And we wish him the best and we miss him.
You bet.
Well, we're starting off. We have different issues, multiple issues. But today we wanted to talk about communication. And this is a loaded one in my mind because it's so broad. And good communication skills just permeate through all parts of your life. And bad communication skills really hurt you in every part with your relationship with your friends, family, marriage, and then going into work. So communication's a big one. How to communicate, what to say, when to say it. They call it emotional intelligence, reading your audience, reading someone in a conversation, understanding what not to touch on, what not to push too hard, and when to be more empathetic. And
it's particularly difficult in the dynamic of a father and a son because of the power difference. And, father and son relationship is, it's volatile and it evolves. I mean, the way you are with your son, the way I was with my son, when he's very little, 2 years old, I'm his entire world. He orbits around me, basically. I'm the jungle gym he plays on. I'm the horse he rides. I provide everything for him. But the older he gets, God has designed it that more and more of his authority comes from me and descends into him. And this causes issues, which, classically go up into the teenage years where you got the teenage rebellion that kicks in. So communication is really key.
Yeah.
And one thing we got to understand about communicating, I learned this from my son. My son is autistic. Classically autistic kids don't communicate much at all. James is not that brand. He's on that spectrum. He's on the spectrum that never hardly closes his mouth. He talks to everybody and he has no social boundaries at all. Right, James?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it was explained to me by a social worker that when James is having some problems, he said, the thing to understand, you may not be able to talk rationally with your son, but everything he does is communication. Everything. From meltdowns to throwing something across a room to aggression to all those things are forms of communication. In many ways, they're far more articulate forms of communication than stringing English words together.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we could do a whole episode just on that. I've done some research on communication with children with autism and adults with autism. It is so fascinating, their perspective. And I know James is kind of like, in my life, I've come across a lot of people with autism. I've never seen a person with autism who is like James. He's very social. In social settings, he'll walk up and start talking to you, and you're not sure what he's saying, but he's talking with such conviction. Or to see him sing or perform on his guitar, he just like demands the audience respect and attention.
And he's always communicating in his world. Like when he's at home, he uses his hand. I've got a cell phone, right? And he sees me call somebody on the cell phone and I'm talking to him. Well, he doesn't have a cell phone. He has his hand. He takes his hand and he pushes the buttons on his hand, just goes up here and he has a whole conversation with people.
I'll show you this. This is I was 4 years old. This is I was when I was 19 years old, and I wrote this story. This is the story. I'll show you this story.
Okay, well,
I'll show you this.
Yeah. Okay, see, this is just, everything's communication, Rick. So
yeah, I hear you, and I love it.
So he'll Shanghai our entire show. James, let me have that. I need that. Okay, thank you, sir.
So,
thank you, son.
But you're right, and also think about the communication with our children. That's a really good. That's an important one. We do come from a point of authority. I mean, at one time, I walked on water. I was the coolest things in my kids' lives, and they adored me for it. Then right about 12, 13, they start figuring out I'm not cool. And I lose a lot of equity in it. But now I want to say a lot of the equity survived because I think I did right by my kids, and they respect me and love me. But I could tell you, I was not the only influence in their life. You know, now they had their friends. Now I'm competing against 13, 14-year-old kids' advice. And
I know. And that is so not fair.
It's not fair.
I mean, we established this franchise.
Right, exactly.
Right? We owned the whole franchise, and we controlled every aspect of what went into our kids' lives. And to have somebody else come along and they just carve out their own little piece. Yeah. We get no say about that. We can't get it back. And if we even try to get it back, we lose more.
It's like the taco cart that pushes in front of the restaurant.
Exactly. Exactly.
They don't deserve to be there. You don't have skin in the game like I do, and this is kind of messed up.
So painful.
And you got to compete with that. And they're hearing things they want to hear. You know. And I don't know. I used to always tease my kids. I used to tell them, I'm so much cooler than every single one of your friends. One, I have a car. None of them have cars. This is when they're like 15 or 14. Two, I go, they can't even afford their own Xbox. I can buy 2 or 3 of those things if I really wanted to. I used to say, I'm so much cooler than all of them. Why don't you want to hang out with me more than you want to hang out with them?
Because, Dad, the more cool you say you are, the less cool you actually are. That's the painful irony of it.
Yeah, that's the hard part. I'm buying my own hype, and they're not buying it for a second.
You know, I'm thinking about it. We designed this show to reach young men who are growing up without a father or without a father that's very involved. And our heart goes out to that because you don't have any voice talking into your life, especially in those places in life that are confusing where a guiding hand, a little bit of experience could make a huge difference. Can make the difference between making a small correction and going over the cliff and having to climb out of the death valley down in your life.
Yeah, it's always better to learn from other people's mistakes. I've always applied that in my life and really tried hard to listen when people tell me stuff because it's important. That life experience means a lot, you know? And so...
Well, how was talking with your dad like?
My dad was a very intelligent man. I always enjoyed conversation with him, and he was very entertaining and an engaging person. Like, so if he was sitting here right now, especially if there's women at the table, he'd have them laughing, joking. He'll get up and dance a little. He's just one of those, you know? So I enjoyed talking to my father. I think my challenge is my dad left my life early, and I was always chasing him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
how old were you when?
11.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I went to go live with my grandmother at that point.
That's a hard age
to
really lose your dad.
But you know what's funny too, Chris? Even 18, 19, and 20 was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, learning stick, how to drive manual transmission because your job's demanding it.
Right.
How to tie a tie. All the simple, dumb things you just don't think about. You struggle through those, you know? So it's funny, all the age, it was hard. And so, but I have to say though, my dad was an engaging man. He's entertaining. You know, and he had that about him, and he can always talk to anyone, anywhere. And I always admired that about him. A very interesting man, had an interesting life. I mean, he's lived on multiple countries. He's just a very interesting person.
It seems like that could be a kind of an intimidating character.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, because but you know, he would never shove it in your face either. He always had an easy way about him, you know? So it wasn't like, you know, well, I learned this in the Army or in my travels to, you know, Mexico or, you know, throughout the United States. He was never like that.
So did he transfer the necessary talks to you on time when they were required?
No. And I say this with respect, but his values were very different than where my values became.
Yeah.
At 15, I found God, and I'm very committed to a relationship with Jesus Christ, and my values changed. And so I'm embarrassed to say what his advice was at times, especially when it came to women advice and things like that.
Yeah.
It was very secular and very, very...
Yeah, he was
worldly.
playing from the catalog that he owned at that moment.
Yeah. So
I had a very similar situation. My dad was a very worldly man, and he had an instinct for life, noble life. I'll put it that way. Like if you watch the Andy Griffith Show and you see Mayberry, you see noble life. It doesn't necessarily have to have Christianity in it to be noble.
All right.
It's kind of noble in its own right.
Right.
And my dad always kind of wanted that, but he did not follow the Lord.
Right.
Not at that point. And when God became very important to me, about the age of 11, 12 years old, we split. Ideologically, we split.
Right.
And my dad lost the ability to really communicate to me, and vice versa.
Right.
There's just, there's a whole bunch of topics I couldn't bring to him.
Right. Right.
And things, oddly enough, my best friend in those early teenage years was this tall, blonde, Aryan guy that played football with me. Very devastating football player, incredible. But he was absolutely a man after my dad's heart.
The son he always wanted.
Yeah, so my dad would stalk me to get to Hank. Because he related with Hank, man. They would sit down, they would talk women, they would talk sports and cars and all the stuff that my dad grew up with that he totally related to. And I was the odd duck, It was kind of strange because the reason that Hank and I connected is that we came from such different polar opposites, and it was amusing to each other.
Yeah,
our take on life. But my dad, he would have thrown me over in a moment and sold me and just got rid of the evidence and taken Hank as his son.
Oh, that's funny.
And that made it that was tough,
Yeah. But yeah, but communication, I guess I never thought about that. What did I learn growing up about communication? The way my family was, not my father, but let's just say on my mother's side and the side I was raised with, very volatile. I mean, very angry, very violent. So you didn't learn how to have a discussion. You learned how to bottle it up and then blow up ugly. That was communication. Yeah. It's an effective communication, or you intimidate and have people walk on eggshells around you. That's the kind of communication I was raised with, So I didn't. It's funny though. Even at that age, maybe because my informative years, I had my father in my life.
Right.
But I never followed its path. I always looked down on it. Like, that's not healthy. That's weird. Or why are you like that? But that is the communication that I saw, most of my life growing up.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, like I talked to my wife about this. We've been married for over 25 years now, and happily, thank God. But that's such a testament to the power of God. Because I did not learn any skills from growing up that would contribute to my marriage.
Huh.
What not to do, yeah. But that's hard to translate. It usually translate what you've seen and you repeat it. But the communication skills was hold things in, blow up. Violence is a part of communication and could be inserted in communication at any time.
And anybody can have a nice conversation about what you totally agree about.
Yeah.
Like my dad was a Ram fan back in the days of Roman Gabriel. Right. That's when I was growing up. So I became a Ram fan. I adopted his. So we could sit down, we could talk about the Rams and the different players and who they're playing and what they're going to do. It was like a greased gears in our communication. But when any kind of topic came up that was a matter of disagreement, that's when that's where you need communication skills.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to learn how to communicate when everything's nice and easy. It's how do I communicate with somebody that I know is going to have a disagreement?
Right.
And if I really think about it, which you don't think about things in this depth at that age, I not only have to tolerate the fact that they think differently than me, I have to anticipate they're going to defend their position.
Right.
I have to anticipate that they're going to take my disagreement as a challenge to what their paradigm.
Right.
And that's going to elicit a defense. And this is where a lot of fathers and sons break company when they get to the age where the sons are right at that adolescent place where they got their own life and their own opinion, then they lose the ability to have discussions, not because they don't want to talk, it's they don't know how to deal with the conflicts that inevitably would develop.
Right.
You know,
it's interesting that you say that. It makes me wonder, and my son Mark does the engineering on this show. I wonder, was I a little overwhelming with my opinion, Mark, growing up and even as a young married man now? Like, I know I had, this is one of my problems. Like, I'm right. Now listen to me, like guilty. I know that.
No, it's not that you were overwhelming. I'd say there was just like, if anything, I wanted more input,
Really?
More input specifically on, I'll probably cut this. It's kind of cringe.
Uh-huh.
More input on being masculine, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
It was a lot of like, don't hit back, control your emotions. It's okay to cry. It's like, I needed some...
Yeah, the angry side.
I needed some John Cena energy or something. I needed some how to kick butt type stuff.
It's funny because, I grew up from, not the prettiest neighborhood, not the prettiest family, and anger and aggression was plenty of it was there.
Right.
And the older I got, especially when I found God, that anger just evaporated. I even had a friend who came back from the army and he told me, "What happened to you? You've gotten soft." And that offended me. I was angry. I knew what he meant. And it's funny though. I just stopped being angry. So I don't think I imparted that part to you guys. Even like one time we were. I took my kids to the horse races for Father's Day, right? My wife said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "I want to go to the horse races." So we went to the horse races. So I'm there, and all of them, like, I don't know, they were like 10, 11 or so. They were younger. And so we go way up to the balcony area so we could see the whole landscape of the horse races. And all of a sudden, I could smell pot. And now, mind you, this is before pot was legal, you know?
Right.
And I'm perfectly downwind. My kids are smelling it, breathing it in, and I got offended. And so I turned around about 3 or 4 aisles up. There's this guy sitting there by himself. And I was angry, and I said, "Dude, you're smoking pot. My family's right here." And then he goes, "Well, why do you bring your..." Thank you, James.
Like
Put your timing's off, my brother. So I sit there and I said, that response? No, then he said, "Well, what are you doing bringing your kids to the horse races?" Okay, now that triggers me, right? I'm like,
It's on, baby.
Yeah, that's how I felt. So we exchanged words, and after that, I remember telling my kids, "I'm sorry. I could have handled that better." When I told him, "Dude, what is your problem? What are you doing smoking pot in my family?" I gave him no exit. Mm-hmm. Either he had to bow his head and walk away or answer me back.
Yeah.
And I said, if I would have been smarter, I would have said, "Hey, my family's here. Would you mind going somewhere else, please? I'd really appreciate that." Now he has an out. He could walk out. And so Mark, I think you're right. I always took the road of, even those times when that would come out, I'd apologize, and I think I should have handled that better. But I still believe that, though. I never wanted to raise you guys with that, the macho aggression. But as a man, there's times when it does have to come out.
Well, thankfully, you don't have to get everything you need from your dad.
Right.
God will provide He'll provide John Cena, to give you what you need. And what comes out of John Cena may not be 100% pure, but the necessary parts are kind of there. You
could filter and take away what you can use, right?
Yeah. What I think is the most difficult time is when often a son gets to a certain age. I mean, it was a little bit later in his teenage years when he's really throwing off the authority of his dad.
Yeah.
And it's like I was the guy that wanted to dress like you when I was back in the 10 years old and wanted to be like you and work in your business. Now I'm 19 or I'm 20 years old. I want nothing to do with you. I don't want to look like you. I don't want to wear my hair like you. Right. I don't want to work in your job. I want nothing to do with you.
Except you keeping a roof over my head.
Yeah, except spend your money on me. Exactly. It's easy for you to say.
Yeah, real words, please.
I like it. Well, at that point, here's the thing that if you do your job as a dad, and this is not so much advice to dads. I mean, I'm trying to talk to those guys that don't have dads. But and I realize if you don't have a dad, then some of this might be kind of irrelevant to you because you don't have that guy to look to. But as a father, we lose our ability to communicate directly to our sons, to tell them directly what it is they need to do in life. But what you got to do is you got to hold the standard, and you have to trust God that God will deliver the message this way, from that way, from around the corner, from other people.
Right.
And then your sons will consider it, but then they'll look back to your dad to see if it's true.
Right.
They'll look back to the standard you set to sort out what the messages they're getting from other people.
Right.
But, what is the point in communication anyway? Why do you communicate with somebody? Is communication a contact sport? Where here I have an idea. I think of politics these days. I have an idea. This person has an idea to the left. This is to the right, and we're going to slam in the middle with no idea that we're going to convince anybody from the other side. It's just who is going to prevail.
Yeah.
Who's going to dominate and leave the other side crushed.
That kind of communication would exhaust me. You're right. There's people who all their communication is who's going to dominate between us two right now.
Right.
That exhausts me. I don't want any part of that. And there's a lot of people like that, especially in the workforce. And I don't like anything. I guess for me is I try to be thoughtful in what I say.
I'm younger like you when I was 19 years old.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you for that. Okay.
I think what I try to do, what do they say, that your mind first figures out the message it wants to send, then it encodes it, then it sends it over to you, and it's for you to decode. I always try to simplify that process. And I always try to understand who I'm talking to. I work in the medical industry. There's times when you're talking to doctors. There's times when you're talking to homeless patients, and you just have to understand how to make your language relevant, like for instance, in radiology, when people ask you questions, well, how does X-ray work? What happened? There's a physicist's answer, and that does no one any good. And there's a way to break it down and keep it simple.
Yeah.
So I've always leaned more towards the keeping it simple because I don't want a lot lost. And then I try not to use too many words. What do they say? After your 8th word, 50% of retention's gone. I mean, the more words you put into a sentence, the more you lose your audience. So I always try to keep, in business, let me make it more specific to that. In business, I try to keep it simple to the point. My writing, which is a form of communication, my emails, simple to the point. I bullet point things. So if I have 3 issues, I'll say, hey, Chris, 3 issues I'm concerned about, 1, 2, and 3. And I love that form of communication because I've had emails sent to me that's a big, long, huge monster paragraph, and I had to print it, stop, and underline each question they had. And they had like 5 questions mounted in there. And I think we could do the same thing with verbal communication as well.
Yeah.
Just overwhelm and flood. So I try to keep it simple, understand who I'm talking to. That's in work, but in life, I think I become a little more passionate, a little more like I'm worried about being overwhelming to my kids,
right?
Because I feel so strong. Like, no, you got to listen, this and this and this. Like,
it's not so much the overwhelming aspect isn't because you are literally trying to overwhelm them. It's who you are.
Right.
In the Bible, in Exodus, there came a point where Moses brought all the children of Israel out of Egypt. So everybody in Israel witnessed God bring all the plagues and split the Red Sea. They passed on dry land. They produced water from a rock. I mean, many incredible miracles. They're eating manna every day, the stuff coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Well, he brings them to Mount Sinai, and God says, prepare the people because I'm going to talk to them personally. Okay, up to this point, God's talking to Moses, and then Moses is talking to the people. But these people they're Egyptians in essence. I mean, they've been living there for 430 years.
Right.
So they're as thoroughly Egyptian as you're ever going to get. The only thing is they have this thread, we're supposed to be this different people, these Hebrew people that comes from antiquity. But none of that has been activated yet. So God says, I'm going to talk to you, and we're going to have this moment. So come to the mountain, and first thing, we're going to rope off this mountain so nobody can get past this mountain and get into my presence, because if you pass this border, you're going to die. And that isn't so much because God's going to kill them. It's that you get too close to the presence of the Almighty God, your flesh, your body that is still corrupt in its own sin,
Right.
won't be able to tolerate it, and you'll perish. So, and we got to make a point. Well, they do that. They set up the line. Then God comes and descends on the mountain, and he descends in the form of fire. Imagine, you're part of this rabble of people that just came out of Egypt, and you have no idea what's happening, where you're going. And you're looking at this mountain, and this giant cloud descends down and is full of fire and is burning everything on the mountain. And it says the smoke went up like the smoke of a kiln that makes bricks. I thought, now that's interesting imagery.
Yeah.
Not smoke from a giant forest fire or smoke from, incense burner, smoke from a kiln that cures bricks. That means this moment is taking these freshly clayed, formed people and is exposing them to a fire that will harden them into bricks, harden them into something that we can build on. So a deliberate act by God. So we fast forward, the voice of God comes down and he literally speaks the 10 commandments to the people, not just to Moses. The one where he gave Moses the tablets, that happens a little bit later. But he actually verbally spoke those 10 commandments to all those people. But you cannot get a more intimidating presence than the Almighty God of the universe right there telling you something. What are you supposed to do with that? Okay, I got it. Okay, thank you.
You fall on your face and cry, dude.
It's like you're dancing on the edge of insanity in the presence of that kind of intimidation. And eventually, God makes his point. He does the thing about hardening those bricks so he can continue to form them into a nation. But then eventually he says, okay, I'm going to tell Moses, because I have Moses conditioned, and then Moses is going to give you these instructions. But I made this display to show you who I am, but I'm not going to lord it over you all the time. I'm going to let this intermediary come and speak to you. I think about that because, look, I'm a dad. I got my son, and being a father to my son, James, is a completely unique experience where most of the dad rules, they don't apply at all.
Right.
There are some that do, and I get a lot of honor from those that witness the way I am with my boy, but all the traditional angles that you would think to play as a dad, they don't apply in this game.
Right.
But they do apply with my daughter. And my daughter has been a real difficult chore for me. Because she has not only entered in that zone, she's passed through that zone. She's well on the other side, and I still can't communicate much to her from the days from when she was young. I can still remember those days when she was little and I was everything to her, and we had a very close tightness. But then the world gets in the way, which it does.
At what age would you start seeing that? I don't want to call it separation, but
high school age?
Yeah.
That's when she started to kind of give me the stiff arm and keep her life secret a little bit close to the vest.
Right.
A lot of things incubated within that paradigm, and it eventually caused a condition where she wasn't following my path anymore. She wasn't following the path that I would tell her to follow. She decided she's going to choose her own path.
Right.
All the communication skills in the world, believe me, everything I ever learned about communicating, I played it all. In that period of time, I played every card, every dad wise card, every, take you out to dinner, take you on trips, try to win your ear so I could communicate to you that the path you're going is a very dangerous path. She wouldn't have it. Right. She wouldn't hear it from me. And I mean, to this day, I don't sit at this desk doing this show as an accomplished father that did everything right. I don't know if I did anything right, literally, but I know that I tried my best.
Right.
I did my very best with what I could think of, and I thought I used every trick in the book that I could think of to get through and make a meaningful communication to my daughter. Right. But in the end, she has to live her own life.
Right.
And this is what God told me in the middle of the struggle. That she is her own person. She's not a descendant of my flesh. She's not She doesn't represent me. She is her own independent and unique person who's making choices for her own life. And if she's going to get anywhere in this life, it's going to be because she chooses to get there. It isn't going to be because I choose it for her.
Right.
You know? So the whole idea of communication just kind of got put on the side. And my form of communication to her now is that I care for her. You know, I help solve problems as they come up. I'm a resource for her. I'm a comfort for her. But in terms of communicating thoughts and articulate ideas, especially ideas that, to me, I can plainly see would improve your life, but she can't see it at all, that's just not relevant.
Yeah.
Not relevant anymore.
That's the heartbreaking part.
Yeah.
We've been down the road, or we know someone who's been down the road. We had front row seats for it, and they're not really listening, or you don't reach them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the heartbreaking part. You know, sometimes though, like Chris, for myself, that I had a good friend, and one of my biggest trials in life, he was the guy I hung out with almost 24/7. And the thing I loved about him is he just listened. He was a quiet guy to begin with, but he just listened. And there's so much value in that. So
Yeah, really.
I do try to do that for my kids. Now that all my kids are adults, 2 of them are married with children, their own children. I really just try to stop and listen, just to be a listening board for them.
That's a superpower, brother.
It's hard, yeah. It's hard because
I wish I had
all
that.
this superior knowledge.
Yeah, you had to be born under a red sun.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if I try doing that with some of my kids, I can't get a couple of minutes before I'm so inflamed and so ready to strike out and to try to correct what's happening. It's like it's.
Well, my wife gets mad at me because not mad at me, but I'll text my boys who are out of the house, right? They'll text me, I'll text them back, and my wife will say, "Oh, who are you texting?" "Oh, I'm texting my son Gage," and she'll say, "What? I've been texting him all day. He doesn't return my text." She goes, "Why does he respond to you?" I said, "Because I don't write him about his weight. I don't write him about if he's taking his medication." I go, "What are you talking about? Guns?" You know, like, we have that. So I leave a lot of room for that, you know, and I try, not perfect at it, but I do try, you know, to just sometimes just listen, you know.
You know what? I was about your age when I was 19 years old.
That's
when
right.
I was 19 years old. I read this book, and this is I read this book.
What was the name of that book?
It's a camping book. I wrote this book. It's a camping book. I wrote this book. It's little books. I read this book. It's a little book, but it's kind of little books like that.
And when we go camping?
Yeah, I wrote this book.
And sometimes I take you camping, huh?
Yeah, I wrote this book. It's a fascinating this book.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. You know, you can write books in there. You can write books in there. You can see it. You can see the water, big water with ocean.
Yeah.
Oh,
see the ocean there.
The ocean, the water, and the trees.
Yeah, trees there.
Yeah.
You can see it.
So sometimes going camping with you, that makes our communication better because we end up having an experience together that we both love. And it's so refreshing and it brings us close. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like that. Okay.
So, but let's pivot here. Communication, let's say now with your spouse. Like, we're talking from a man's perspective to our wives.
Yeah.
Different, you know, different. And for me, I was raised with 3 brothers and an uncle all in one room. So, and my grandmother was a tomboy. I never had the female perspective. Women fascinate me, but then I tend to be a little too delicate. Like, I don't want to break it. I don't want, so what advice would you give someone on communication with their wife?
Well, you had to do something right because you tricked her into being with you.
Exactly.
And choosing you, you know?
Right.
But sometimes it's like advertising. We know that 50% of it works. We just don't know which 50%.
Or she might have gone into it thinking, I'm going to fix you. And then she found out later, you're not fixable.
Yeah. I think that, especially with a marriage, it comes back to that rule that communication with words is the weakest form of communication. Things you say, the words you string together. popular culture is kind of intoxicated with the idea of magic spells. There's always these witches, and there's Harry Potter, and everybody's got these paradigms where you say exacto presto, or you put the right words together, and then whatever you want happens. A lot of guys think communication is like that.
Right.
If I can just incant the right string of words, then I could get my wife to do what she wants. Bling, she'll do what I want. It never works that way.
Right.
And so what you got to do is you got to become a master of communication of every other form.
But that's hard. It's so, like, you remember that marriage conference we had called Love and Respect.
Yeah.
And it talked about the man's way of communicating and a woman's way of communicating.
Yeah.
And for just an example, when two men get in an argument, a lot of times we'll shut down. We'll give each other, I'm going to give you time to cool off. I'm upset. I'm cooling off. I'm not going to say anything dumb or escalate this. And that's our way of showing respect to each other. And there's nothing wrong with that for us. But they're saying our wives, they need to bring everything to a conclusion. They need to come full circle. So when we break off to cool off, like my wife makes me mad, now I just give her the silent treatment. I'm doing it, one, so I don't say anything mean.
Right.
Two, I don't hurt her feelings, and three, I'm trying to give myself time to cool off so I can show her love and respect.
Right.
But to her, she's taking it as, oh, he shut down on me. He doesn't love me. We need to finish this. And now she's going to start going after me to come full circle the way she wants to.
Right.
Understanding that simple communication dynamic has helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
One time we were at a parent-teacher conference in the morning, and I had to get to work. I had some really important things. They were so important, I can't remember what it is today, but I remember back then.
Of course.
I was mad because here's my social, lovely wife chatting away with the teacher, and I got to get to work.
Yeah.
And it went away, and I was mad. And I snapped, and I don't remember what I said, but there's automatic tension between us, and we get in the car, and now I'm giving her the silent treatment because I'm fuming because I'm running late now. And I'm thinking I could drop you off, and now I got to fight traffic. I'm going to be extra late. I got this and this. And then my whole mind's building on itself, my frustration. And then I remembered those words, that your wife needs to come full circle. And I'm trying to show her respect. I'm shutting down so I don't say anything dumb, which I'm perfectly capable of doing. And so we got a little ways down the street, and I thought, what do I say? I didn't know what to say because I was angry. And so all I said was, honey, I know I'm supposed to say something right now, but I honestly don't know what to say. And she had this sense of relief come over her like, okay, I forgive you. That's what she said.
Wow.
It was that easy. But I showed her, man.
I got to remember that spell. Let me write that one down.
No, I think what she saw was, I didn't know what to say, but man, I'm trying. Here I am, and that was enough, But understanding that, if I didn't have that gold nugget or that tool in my toolbox, I would have went to work quiet.
For sure.
And then come home to this awkward silence, and she would have been felt hurt the whole day.
Well, that's a rule.
Yeah.
Everything is communication.
Yeah.
Everything is. So even when you stop and you listen, sometimes that's the strongest form of communication, because what does it communicate?
Right.
To your wife or to whoever you're in a conflict with.
You're important. I'm hearing you out, know? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it would be, the only thing is it'd be really wonderful if you could think this way in the heat of the moment.
True.
In the heat of the moment, I turn into a lizard brain, and I can't think past my own needs and desires.
Right. Well, what about just in the little things, though? Like I'm watching TV and she talks to me. Yeah. Let's kick it up a notch. I'm watching a sporting event, and here she is. She wants to talk to me about her sister, with some problem, whatever. Right. I train myself to stop whatever I'm doing and turn and make eye contact and give her my full attention. I train myself that. That is frustrating, though. I'll admit that, because sometimes
clearly some man couldn't get past that problem, and it forced him to invent VCRs and pause button. It forced that technological innovation to get past that.
You have to, because they have no timing,
Right.
So,
exactly.
No, but I force myself. That's a little thing. That's just like, whatever I'm doing, I'm going to, and I did this with my kids too, I'm going to stop. I'm going to give you my full attention. And so I'm not going to say I was totally perfect at it, but I did try it. So hopefully when I blew it down the road on something else, I had enough equity built up in that, you know what I mean? So what do you call it? If you get it out of jail free cards on those, Right.
Well, the equity thing is really important. You got to, the most important thing in a communication, I think, is this trust that both parties are coming
Right.
to an issue in good faith,
Right.
in goodwill. And when I'm talking to my wife, I try to bear in my mind that this is the woman that I love, that I chose, that I love, even though I do not like what she's doing. Mm-hmm. And I wish she wouldn't do it. And I wish she would understand the clear and obvious reasons why she shouldn't do it. They're clear and obvious to me that she can't see at all.
Right.
But nevertheless, the person here is the person I love. And sometimes it helps in the middle of this kind of conflict where both parties are just getting so heated up with the friction to what I call crossing the ball. Mm-hmm. In soccer, I've kind of watched the Premier League, English Premier League. Occasionally, the ball will be played up towards the goal and it's coming down the left side, and the entire defense is arrayed to defend against that guy on the left side with the ball. They're all in position. And there's no way to get through them. There's no way to get the passes. So sometimes what they'll do is they'll just kick it all the way to the other side of the field where there's another guy there. It's called crossing the ball. And for a split moment, all the defenses have to reorganize to defend the other side. In that moment of disorganization, opportunities open up. So sometimes when in the middle of a fight, if you tell your wife, I love you, and I'm here because I'm committed to you, even though we're fighting, it crosses the ball, and it creates an opportunity where her defenses that are aligned to defend against you get slightly disorganized. And sometimes a moment, an opportunity can happen where you can break through and actually say something that needs to be said, or more importantly, hear something that she needs to say.
Right. It's true. I think especially with our wives, their intentions in any conversation or even argument are so pure. With it, they're usually for the betterment of ourselves or our family.
Yeah.
And I love that about them. And I always bring myself back to that. Like, what is she trying to communicate? And so there's been times I've gotten home from work mad, angry at the world. You breathe, you're frustrating me, Mm-hmm. And I've told my kids and my wife, guys, I just had a bad day. Yeah. I'm not my best right now. I need a little space. And it's funny, though, that simple little ask gives me a world of grace. Oh, here, Dad, here's something to drink. I'll leave you alone now, and I always cool off, but the communication of that, just throw it out there. It's hard, though, because people, I think most of the worst arguments come from we're misunderstanding each other, or you misunderstand your wife's intentions, and so when you fall back on that love part, it's easier to forgive, even to the point of, I think you're wrong, but I'll keep my big fat mouth shut because you need me to right now. You know what I mean?
And believe me, sometimes it's better just to take the loss.
Yeah.
Even though you're right.
Yeah.
Take the loss because it'll create equity that can be played in a different way at a different time. Right. And sometimes the way that my partner might be wrong, if I simply just take the loss and let it be, she'll sort it out herself.
Well, here's a hard bullet to take. And women tend to do this to men. They'll tell you about their problem. And then men, what do? We fix things. We give them the perfect advice that will solve their problem.
Know, right?
They don't even want to hear it.
I know.
They just need us to stop and sympathetically listen.
Jeez, blast women. How can you?
I know. It's so easy. It's so much easier being a man. I'll say that right now. I don't think, if anyone disagrees with me, I'm sorry, you're wrong. But I had to tell myself that with my wife and my daughter. They just need someone to listen. I just need to listen right now. And then there's been times, though, well, what would you do then? I'm like, oh, you're asking advice, and I got tons of it, and you're gonna regret saying that.
Sometimes they're only saying that like a guy at a skeet shoot says, pull. They want you to throw your idea up in the air so they can shoot it down with a shotgun.
That's so funny. I always tell my wife that when she says, what do you think? I go, you're setting me up. I'm not going to give you it.
I know, right?
I tell her, it's like a clay pigeon. You're just going to shoot it down. No, I won't. So like, oh.
But this kind of communication, these are the skills that you kind of learn, a son should learn from his dad.
Right.
It's not so much the playbook. It's not like you're giving your son a playbook. What you do is you're showing them the experience. This is how I wade through this, because your son watches you fight with your wife. They hear all that.
Right.
I heard that, when I was growing up. But of course, when I was growing up, alcohol was really involved in a lot of it. And it's supercharged and made the argument so flammable, but there's no reason.
Yeah.
There was, it was absolute battle royale. But
nothing gets better by adding alcohol.
I know, right?
Honestly.
Yeah.
Nothing gets better, especially when there's an argument or discussion.
I could do a whole show on that.
It gets ugly. It gets ugly. And you have your happy drunks, but even that's not good. But then you have your angry drunks, and some people add alcohol where you're just begging for trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so to sum all this up, Chris, what are your thoughts? Communication with your children, nuggets, if you will. Communication with your children, your wife, and your coworker.
Number one thing is realize everything is communication. I learned that with my son. That means even everything you do is communicating something to the people that you love and that you're living with. Mm-hmm. Even when you think you're doing nothing, that's communicating something. And you have to be aware of that. You have to hear what your actions are saying, because you're going to be held responsible for that.
Right.
So if you have a dad that's just, I'm not going to get involved, I'm not going to talk to my son at all, what are you communicating there? You're
and men shut down. And men shut down. That's true. Yeah.
You tell your son you're not worth the trouble.
Right.
That's the way he would understand it. You may say, well, I'm just tired. I don't want to, I dealt with conflict all day at work, whatever.
Right.
There's whatever your reasons are, but the way it's received and heard is that I'm not worth the trouble.
Right.
And, you don't want to be a part of my life. You don't understand me at all. You and I are not even on the same team. Mm-hmm. Everything you do is communication. If you realize that, number one, then you can audit everything all the ways that you are. And there are plenty of times where you can come in and you can communicate love without any words. If you're sensitive to it, and the small little things, like going behind your wife and rubbing her shoulders for a little bit, little meaningful touches that aren't necessarily sexual, or they don't mean anything more than I care about and I'm concerned for you. All those things stack up equity so quickly. It's amazing.
What do you call it? A massage with no strings attached?
Yeah, right. Very few of those really exist, though. There's always a string attached. I just don't always pull the string.
Yeah, I'll just hide the string.
But, honey, I want you to know the string is always there.
It's always there.
It's always there. I mean, anytime you want to pull the string, totally fine with it.
Yeah, it's true.
But same thing with work, how you are in work. I mean, God, there's times when I've gone into work and I've been so spun up. Tornado mode, or just dealing with this, dealing with that. I'm spun up. And things go out of control, or I don't have effective control in it. And then a phenomena happens to me where if I can't control the things that I really want to control, then I get hyper crazy about controlling whatever's within my grasp.
Oh, right.
That's when I come home and it's like, how dare you put the plate on that side of the table and not this side of the table? And you get anal about stuff like that, and you just got to realize that all that is me spinning up from my other frustration.
Yeah, exactly. I think for work, one of the things I like to do is to communicate clearly. And it's not always easy, though, because sometimes it may mean this. Chris, I requested that you do this, and then you just disappeared. You didn't respond. Or you told me you're going to do it, now it's a deadline, and it's not here.
Yeah.
What I need from you, when I give you something, I need to hand it off to you and not have to worry about it again, because I got all this other things. So that's what I need from you. So I'll have those conversations, but I'd prefer this conversation. Chris, I need this by this date. I'm going to take this off my radar because I'm just going to trust you're going to knock it out and give it to me on this date. So thank you for handling that. And so setting expectations clearly.
Right.
And it's not always easy because confrontation's hard for us sometimes.
Yeah.
Chris, you keep asking me for this. I can't give you that. You want me to do it. I want to do it for you. I just don't have time. That kind of communication to me goes a long way. Because it sets everyone's expectations,
Look at the way the military does it.
Oh my gosh.
I'm always fascinated with that. You go into a command center in a battleship, and a captain gives an order to the helmsman to do something. He repeats it right back, and that's to tell the captain that I have totally received your order, and I'm conscious of what you want me to do.
Right.
You know, Can you imagine if you had a household where everybody fed back to you exactly what you were communicating? They would, you'd have some insurance so everybody knows what really needs to be done.
It'd be a different world. I may not like it, but it'd be a different world.
And if I could just get everybody in my family to wear a uniform,
exactly.
And I could get one of those big stripes, all the medals on my chest, and I can walk
Honestly,
around.
though, there's men out there who wish it was like that.
I know it.
I would say for children, whatever you're doing, stop and listen.
Yeah.
And I think this goes for wives, and same thing for wives. But I would also say this,
Jimmy.
Sometimes just listen.
Yeah.
Actively listen. Sometimes I'll ask questions when I don't have to. I just want them to know I'm hearing you.
Right.
But just sometimes they need someone just to hear them.
Yeah.
And know that. Don't always try to fix it with advice. And I'm very guilty of this.
Right.
Sometimes they just listen. And that's a lot of love right there in just listening, I would say.
So here's an idea. Young guy who's out there listening to this podcast, who doesn't have a dad, doesn't have that father, that voice in his life, we're here to listen to you.
Yeah.
You have the ability, if you look at the comments section of whatever platform you're looking on, to feed back to us.
Yeah.
To communicate to us, to ask us about some really difficult situation. I give you my word that you do that, we will listen to what you have to say.
Always, yeah.
We'll consider it, and we will respond back to you. And in as meaningful a way as we can possibly get back. Not because we're going to have all the answers. We're just older guys that care about how your life turns out.
Yeah, very much.
Right?
Yeah, I love that.
That's the only reason we're doing this.
Right.
We care about how your life is going to turn out.
We do. Well, with that being said, take Chris up on that. Shoot us an email.
Yeah.
We're wide open to hearing you. Our email address is heydadpodcastofficial@gmail.com. And maybe our supreme engineer could put that on a little whatever on the bottom of the screen. Or you may be able to even get it off the YouTube channel or put it in the comments on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And then also if you could hit the like button and subscribe and all that stuff too. That's good.
Yeah, that's all going to help.
That's going to help everything get going. So with that being said, Chris, close us in prayer.
Yeah.
And do you happen to have one of those father proverbs on you?
I probably do, actually. Hold on, let's go get it. Go get it in my vault.
What was it? The things every father should teach their children?
Yeah, they're awesome.
It's a long list of things.
Yeah, but they're kind of odd things. Like, all right. Right. When entrusted with a secret, keep it. Keep it.
Yes.
Do you realize that will give you the aura of a superhero among your fellows? If you're able to be a secure vault for somebody's intimate communication to you. I know members of my family, not my immediate family, but members of my extended family, you talk to them, you're talking to the internet.
It's all about everybody, though, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's that's the way it's kind of becoming, with everybody. But be that man or that woman that can hold a secret. If somebody entrusts it with you and they say, please keep this to yourself, then simply keep it to yourself.
Yeah. Have you ever heard anyone tell you, I can't tell you, I said I wouldn't say anything? I always walk away with a little bit of respect. Like, oh, you're a safe person. I respect. There's an integrity there.
Right. And if somebody is about to tell you something that you think, I can't hold this in confidence, then tell them that.
Yeah.
Say, look, don't tell me something that, about this situation because I'm not going to be able to hold that in confidence.
You know what I've done that with? Well, okay, Rick, I'm going to tell you, but don't tell your wife.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Okay, dude, we understand everything I know. My wife's going to get out of me one way or another.
She has ways of working me.
So just understand that. So, well, with that being said, thank you. Let's close and pray.
Yeah, the Lord, man, this communication thing is it's one of those foundational elements because we're all individual men and women that have been made in your image, complete. Made in your image, but yet we're in relationship with every other person in this world, whoever's in our closest circle and the extended circle. So, Father, our interactions with everybody is communication. And Father, I just pray that you need to drop wisdom upon anybody that hears this show and hears this prayer that I'm giving, because You're the one that can make us smarter, wiser, and more skillful. Father, let your grace be upon us and elevate us into super communicators. In the name of Jesus, I ask this.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us today.